Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. The Ground Control Brewer is revolutionizing batch brew coffee as we know it. And something like this doesn't come around often that absolutely changes the game for a product that is just a staple in the coffee bar. But the Ground Control does it. The SCA award-winning technology unlocks incredible potential from your coffee by giving you control over a range of flavors that you might not have even considered being in your most beloved coffee. Not only does this make amazing batch brew, but it also creates tea, batched iced lattes, batched cold brew. And so if you're looking for quality and versatility and true differentiation, then I suggest you take a real good look at the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer. Go to their website over at groundcontrol.coffee for more information. Again, that website, groundcontrol.coffee. Today's episode is also brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been making espresso machines in Florence since all the way back in 1927 and has been developing its equipment right alongside specialty coffee retailers like you since then. They're making all sorts of innovations in their machines based on the feedback they get. And it is, I think, La Marzocco is the quintessential espresso machine of specialty coffee for a very good reason. Machines like the KB90 machine that introduced straight-in locking portafilters for improved ergonomics, auto flush for increased cleanliness, and also built-in scales that improve consistency of your shots. Now, La Marzocco USA is available to help coffee entrepreneurs like yourself get the best equipment for their shops, and all you need to do is contact one of their sales directors by emailing info@lamarzocousa.com. Also, check out their awesome website over at lamarzocousa.com. Okay, everybody. Well, today on Shift Break, I wanted to talk about something that I don't think we're very good at, and I'll say I'm not the best at this either, but the older I get, the more I really want to be good at this, and that is skewing positive. So we typically, I think, skew negative. If you're listening to this show, you might be a manager, a trainer, an owner, aspiring to be those things. And when you get into those positions, and those of you who are in those positions, I think it's generally true that our attention goes to the things that are wrong very, very easily because we hold in our head this carrot dangling in front of our eyes, this perfect bar, this perfect schedule, this ideal. I think the best leaders are people who have a vision and they see the end result. They see the end of the race and they say, okay, we have to get there. How do we get there together? And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to have that. However, on your way there, I think there is a tendency to assume that everybody else has the same vision and that vision sustains them. And therefore, we don't ever need to talk about it. A lot like that joke they talk about how, the husband and wife are talking and she says, you never say that you love me. And he responds by saying, I said I love you when I married you, and that still stands. And we laugh because, that's terrible. And also kind of like, I guess we do that with a lot of things in our life, not just the words I love you, but the way we communicate. We have a pretty assumptive stance when it comes to those things, and it actually hurts the progress that we desperately want to see. We have a desire to push forward. We have a desire to help people and develop culture and develop our communities and all that other stuff. But if we don't take the time to cultivate a disciplined sense of recognizing, calling out positivity, both in our own minds and in the minds of others, it's just not going to work the way we want it to. It's not going to work the way other people want it to either, because they're going to start to see you as somebody who just takes them for granted or takes good times for granted and always points out the bad stuff. Bruce Tulgan talks about this as the bad news manager, where every time somebody sees you, they know it's going to be bad news. Oh, toilets aren't working, or, you guys missed something in a closing shift, or, we're not going to have this product for 3 weeks. Maybe it's oat milk. Of course it's oat milk. But the point is that you don't want to be the one that is seen as a dark cloud necessarily. You want to be a little bit more sunshine in this. You don't need to ignore problems. No one's asking you to do that. But sometimes, and I feel this way too, it's hard to let go of those things, those negative things, because we feel that if we don't hang on to them, we'll forget about them. So sometimes our skewing negative is based on a lack of discipline and organization. We feel like if we don't focus on these negative things, then they're just going to snowball out of control. All the time, we're not really realizing that the lack of affirmation is also piling up. The lack of encouragement or thankfulness and recognition, all of that is also piling up. And so we could fix all the problems. That's fine. We can address things. We can jump on shift when people get sick, all that stuff. We can just be a servant like crazy. But if we're not skewing positive with our presence and our words, and the way that we use just the impact that we have as leaders, it's not going to be balanced. And people recognize that. And because you're an authority, I think people generally are going to skew negative themselves in their interpretation of what you're thinking at any given moment. And because of that, one of the main priorities we need to do is discipline ourselves in our thinking and our actions to recognize positivity. And it's not good enough to just do it on a schedule. You need to actually mean it. This is something that comes down to some deeper work in ourselves, where we need to generate genuine gratefulness and positivity in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts, because if we don't, it's not going to be sustainable. It'll be a gimmick. It'll be a veneer, like we talked about in our more recent professionalism episode. So one of the ways that you can start doing this is to start journaling. You can do this at home. In fact, I would recommend doing it at home, but if you can't, you can do it, in the office or something. It doesn't need to be anything spectacular. Just do it on your phone and start listing out things that you're grateful for, that you're joyful about, that you're positive about, specific things with your team, with your business, all that. You can sit in your car for 5 minutes and meditate on those things right before you go into your shift, and then again as you leave your shift. I really think you can't roll into your shift without mindfulness and expect a shift to go very well, especially if you're somebody with any kind of authority whose mere presence communicates volumes more than anybody else's presence. Your intentionality entering into the cafe needs to have already been determined by you before you go in there, and not determined by the situation you find once you walk in. And that's how you help encourage the creation of a great culture. Great cultures are not cultivated through the means of mere reaction and problem solving. You don't just build a great garden through weeding the garden. Although that's important, you grow it through nourishment. And skewing positive with our mindsets is an essential part of the process that sets everything else up for success. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.